post of Zen and it's the post ID. So I am just pasting it here, and then after slash say the like. Now inside the body we should have a user ID. Let's say Jawad is liking the post of Zen. So inside the users, and this is the ID of Jawad user. So I am copying this. Paste it here and let's send the request. Before sending we should include it in our route, otherwise there will again be an error. Put simply ID which is saying like, so like post. Okay, let's save this and hope for the best. So connection again refused, otherwise it's working fine. Why? So yeah, post like. Now let's see in the database update. This database, and inside the posts there is the array likes and it includes the user ID of Jawad. So First of all, I am just making catch block complete like this, and now I am finding this post inside our model. Cause post is equal to post model dot find by id, and then the id and it should be an async. So here I am saying await. Now, as we know, inside the post model, the likes was an array of user IDs. So if a user likes a post, his user ID will be included in the likes array of that post. Okay, so to like a post, I am making a check. If post dot likes, okay, likes includes the user ID, then we have to do something. Okay, so as it is checking if the user ID is included, but if he or she is liking the post for the first time, then his user ID shall not be in the likes array. So therefore I am here putting a negation sign. So now this line of code is saying if our current user ID is not included in the likes array of that post, then perform the following functionality, which is saying await post await post dot update one, and then simply push. So to push the like, here I am saying the likes array, inside the likes array push our current user ID. So this is very easy one, and send the response dot status with the 200, and in the JSON say post liked. Okay, post liked. Now let's try this. So inside Thunder client, I am making a new request and saying it as like a post. Okay, as like post is also updating a document. Here I am again sending it as put request towards localhost 5000 towards the post, and then there should be a post ID. Let's say this is the post of Zen and it's the post ID, so I am just pasting it here, and then after slash say the like. Now inside the body we should have a user ID. Let's say Jawad is liking the post of Zen. So inside the users, and this is the ID of Jawad user. So I am copying this, paste it here, and let's send the request. Before sending, we should include it in our route. Otherwise, they will again be an error. Put simply ID, which is saying like. So like post. Okay, let's say save this and hope for the best. So connection again refused, otherwise it's working fine. Why? So yeah, post like. Now let's see in the database, update this database, and inside the posts there is the array likes and it includes the user ID of Jawad. So our like functionality is working fine. Now we have to make a dislike functionality. So we can make a dislike functionality inside this same controller. What I say, if this user ID is already included in the likes and the user is again sending the request to like the post, then actually dislike the post. So yeah, to make it actually dislike, I will just simply copy this and paste it here inside of. Pushing our current user, I am pulling it away, and here I will say post unlike. Now let's save and try to hit this request again. And again the connection is refused. Okay, let's try again. So it is saying post unlike. Let's check in database. So inside the array there is nothing, means our unliking a post is also working fine. Our next functionality is the most important functionality in our API. So the controller is get timeline post. Get timeline post. Okay. So first of all, just define it as export const and timeline. Okay, for more specific, let's say get timeline post and async request response, then a function. Okay, first of all, I will receive the ID of user who wants to get his or her timeline post. So get user ID from request dot params and dot ID. Okay, before making any code for the timeline post, I want to clear you something, that the timeline post for any user includes post of his or herself on and the post of the persons or the users to whom he or she have followed. Okay, so let's repeat it again. The timeline post of a user includes his own posts and the post of the person he is following. Okay, so here I have acquired the user ID from the parameter of our request. Let's make the text bigger. Okay, after this, make a try catch block, and inside the catch block simply just copy and paste the error thing. And here now I am going to receive the post of the current user who wants to get his timeline post. Okay, so const current user post. Okay, and to get these posts, let's see how I will contact with my database. I will say await post model dot find, and for finding I will say where the user ID is equal to the user ID that we have received for the parameters. So by running this query, it will return us all the posts from the post model which have the user ID, our current user ID. Okay, after requiring these ports, I want to have the posts of the users who he is following. So before coding, let's make this scenario possible in our database. If I open my database and inside the users, let's say for the Zen and he is following nobody. So first of all, I will copy the user ID of Zen and inside my Thunder client, and there is the user request, the follow request. Here I am giving the current user ID of the Zen. And then I am giving the user ID of Jawad to follow. So now let's send this. So now Zain is following the Jawad, and also I want to follow Umar. So I am just copy his user ID, paste it here, and let's send. So now Zain is also following Umar. Now if I refresh my database here, there will be two following members inside the following array of Zen. So there is Zen. Okay, here inside the following there are the two IDs. Okay, so now the timeline post of Zen will include the post of Zen itself and the post from the Jawad and Umar. So okay, I think here we have these three posts. So basically, in the timeline of the Zen, these three posts should be present. So now let's move to code. Okay, let's close this follow request. And here I am making an other constant, which is the following post that will contain the post from the users that we have followed and await. Now as I have to interact with the user model, so I should first import it in our controller. Here I am importing user model. Okay, so user model from models, inside models the user model.js. Okay, so why it is not working by auto intelligence, let's see again inside the user model. And here I am exporting the user model. Okay, I don't know why it's not working by the auto intelligence. By the way, let's move on to the code. Here I'll say user model dot aggregate. Okay, aggregate is the most complex query method to interact with the Mongo database. So I will explain the each step of aggregation pipeline to you guys. Let's see how I'm going to do this. So basically aggregation is an array of steps. So first make an array, and inside this array I am making the first step. So our first step will be the matching step. I will say match with the user, okay, whose object ID is the our current user ID that we have received from the parameters. But this ID will not work simply by this. It will not be able to match the ID, because if we have a look at database, it includes object ID in the front of underscore ID. So to make this in a proper format, I will place curly braces, and here I will say new mongoose. Dot types dot object ID. Now it is able to match with the IDs in our database. Okay, so when this query will run, it will give us a single document, and that document will contain our user ID in its ID field. Okay, after returning this, we will move on to the second step of our aggregation pipeline, which is the lookup. Okay, So what is the basically lookup? We use lookup when we have to match the document in an other model by placing the query in an other model. What that means I am placing the query on the user model and I want to get the results from the post model. Sorry, here this is the post model. So let's repeat. For example, I am placing the query on the user model and I want to get results from the post models. So what I will do, I will first make an aggregation pipeline, and in aggregation pipeline inside the lookup step, I will integrate with my post model while remaining inside the user model. Okay, so I will say from post, and then our local field is the following. I will explain each of them, but let's just follow me. And here the user ID as following post. Okay, so here I am saying I want to integrate with my post model because the name of our post model inside database is post, so therefore I am saying simply post. And the local field is the field against which we want to integrate with an other model. So inside our user model we have a following field which is an array. Inside this array we have the user IDs. So against those user IDs I want to match with my post inside the post model. Means in the database here inside the post I have these user IDs, and I also have these user IDs inside the following array of each user. So I want to match those posts whose user IDs are included in the following array of our user. So now I think it's clear to you. And then I want the result as the following post object. Okay, now let's move on to the third step of the aggregation, which is the project. So project is nothing more but the return type of our aggregation, means which fields you want to return as the result of aggregation. So I want to return just one field, which is the following post that I have made here. By default, the aggregation pipeline always returns us an extra field, which is the ID field of the object, and I want to neglect that field, so I am just making it as 0. Now let's save this, and we should now see the result in the response. So let's simply say response.status with the 200 like this, and then inside the JSON. Now first of all, let's, for the simplicity, I'm just saying current user post dot concat with the following post, because we want both the posts in our timeline. Therefore I'm concatenating my current user post with the following post. Let's save this. Here inside the post route I am making a router dot get request, and inside the get request, first of all we will have our user ID and then timeline. Okay, and it will call the get timeline post controller. Let's save this, and here I am making inside the post request a new request as get timeline post, and inside the get timeline post, let's say local host 5000 post. Okay, it is just a post because inside that, and here will be the ID of our user. So as I want the timeline post for the Zen, so just copy his ID. Okay, here is his ID. I am copying this and pasting it here, and now write the timeline. And yeah, inside the body we don't have to make any type of object because inside the controller we are not interacting anywhere with the body. Yeah, let's say our server is also running fine. Okay, we are ready to put request, hope for the best, and we are sending, and here is the returned array. Okay, so I want to see this response properly. First of all, here you can see that it is returning us an array because we are performing the concatenation inside our controller, and this concatenation is here, so it always returns us an array. But there is a problem with this array. We want all the posts in the same format, but here what is the problem? The first post, which is his own post of Zen, is in the proper format that we required, but the posts of other users are in an other object which have the name post, and then this object also have an array, and inside this array we have the post of other users. So it is a very complex type of format and we have to simplify it. Okay, so now what can I do? First of all, I will spread this whole object. Okay, this object of following post. So let's spread this. Okay, inside the concatenation, here I am spreading this by simply placing 3 dots. Now let's save this and again send the request. Okay, so we should wait for a while because our server was running. Okay, now let's send this again, and here is the result. So what is the result? That even after spreading the following post, still we are getting the same result. Okay, it's not providing us too much functionality still. Now what I can do, I'm going to target this following post. So here I will say after spreading, target the first member. Now let's see. Okay, we should wait for some seconds. Now let's send again. Okay, there is an internal server error. There is an internal server error because at the 0th index there is not a properly defined property. So if I say at the 0th index target the following post, and now let's save and try again. Okay, here I am sending it, and now you can see our result in the most proper manner that we want to acquire. Here we have all the posts. First post from his own account from the Zen, and then the other posts are from the members to whom he is following. Still there is a problem. When we look at the social media applications, there is a proper alignment of the posts. These posts are according to the at which they were created, not simply the person always have his own post first and then the post of other person. The posts are according to the time at which they are created. Okay, so to perform this we have to sort our this response according to the property created at. So what I will say, first of all, let's sort this, and now here I will say sort the response as. Now the sort function, it will have two parameters a and b. It's a simple JavaScript sorting technique. You can search it on a Google and you will find it anywhere. So I will say return b dot created at, so created at minus a dot created at. It will always give us the results in the descending order, because here we have first b and then we have the e, and both are the objects of the type date, so they can perform the functionality of subtracting. Now let's save this and give some time for the server to run again. Okay, now it's listening. Let's send the request, and here now you can see, now we first have the post of Umar because it